Well, Kamala, I think you've got it exactly the opposite. The federal government ought to give all it can to the American citizens devastated by these storms, not to illegal aliens who have no right to be here. But everything she's done as border czar, I don't know if you saw this. We had a nice debate with Tim Walz a couple days ago. I think we did pretty well. I had fun. And I'll tell you that, the people ask where my strategy came from. It actually came from President Trump, because a few weeks ago I was talking to the president. We were, shooting the breeze like we often do. And he said, "Well, what are you going to do in this debate?" And I said, "I don't know. What do you think I ought to do in this debate?" And he said, just be really tough on her. And a kind of light bulb went off. A lot of American citizens don't realize that Kamala Harris cast the tie-breaking vote to cause all this inflation, $4 trillion in new spending. And a lot of Americans don't realize that Kamala Harris was the border czar during the worst border crisis in the history of this country. And I thought, President Trump is exactly right. Why am I going to go after Tim Walz? I'm going to spend that 90 minutes and I'm going to hammer Kamala Harris on her failed record. And so that's what I did. But I saw that CBS, one of the fake journalists, 3 years ago, CBS ran a story calling Kamala Harris the border czar. And then they said, they had the audacity to say, well, J.D. Vance was missing context when he called Kamala Harris the border czar. Well, I guess CBS was missing context 3 years ago when they made the exact claim, but this is how it works, my friends. They run away from their record, because Kamala Harris's record on the border is a disgrace. On day one, they did 94 executive orders undoing Donald Trump's incredible success at the southern border. They bragged about the fact that they wanted to open the American southern border, and that's exactly what happened. And thanks to their leadership, we've got a record amount of fentanyl coming into our communities. The Mexican drug cartels are running drugs, sex trafficking, and illegal guns in our communities. And it's funny to me, Kamala Harris says that she cares about crime, but she wants to do gun grabbing from lawful American citizens. I think if you care about crime, protect the rights of American citizens to own a gun if they so choose, and take the guns away from the Mexican drug cartels, but she wants to do exactly the opposite. Doesn't make any sense. So let's just talk about the contrast here between Kamala Harris's record and Donald Trump's record, and then, of course, the vision for the future. Because, look, I came from a working-class family. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes not pay her own medical bills so that she could put food on the table. God bless you, ma'am. I see you got my book there. And I got it. And by the way, you can buy that book wherever books are sold, my friends. But Donald Trump's economic plan is very simple. When we talk about bringing back American factories, you can't do that just with words. You got to have actual action behind it. And you know how you're going to bring back American factories? Two things. Number one, drill, baby, drill. Open up American energy, produce it with American workers. And the second thing you got to do is you got to stop foreign countries from undercutting Americans with cheap labor. Now, look, the Chinese Communist Party, they're more than willing to let people work at literal slave wages and then try to bring those products into the United States. That's how you close factories like the one that we're standing right next to, is you allow foreign countries to undercut the wages of American workers. You know what Donald Trump is going to do? He's going to slap a big fat tariff on everything coming in from China, because we're going to protect American workers. We're going to protect their jobs. Donald Trump wants to cut taxes for American working families and raise tariffs on the foreign countries and the foreign companies that are shipping jobs overseas. Kamala Harris wants to raise your taxes and facilitate the people who are shipping jobs overseas. I think that Donald Trump's plan makes a lot more sense, don't you? Kamala Harris wants to further open the border. She wants to grant asylum and parole to millions upon millions of illegal aliens. Donald Trump wants to build the wall and send those illegal aliens back home. They don't belong in this country. They belong in their own. And I want to send a message to everybody who's in this country illegally. While you've heard from Kamala Harris that she's going to give you free Medicare benefits and free health care benefits, she's going to give you free housing benefits paid for by American taxpayers, Donald Trump's going to win the White House. We all believe that, right? So our message to illegal aliens who are in this country without the consent of the American people is, you got 4 months, pack your bags because you're going home. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, I couldn't believe this. I had to double check it. 425,000 illegal migrant criminals are in the United States of America. That's more than twice the size of the U.S. Marine Corps. We got some Marines out there, I'm sure. Semper Fi to the Marines. But, I think if anything, we ought to make the Marine Corps a little bit bigger and shrink the size of the illegal migrant crime population in this country. I think Kamala's got it backwards. There are over 400,000 illegal aliens in the state of Georgia. 120,000 Georgian students are the children of illegal immigrants. Think about what that does to the education of Georgia children when you drop in over 100,000 kids, many of whom don't speak English. And look, I've got all the compassion in the world for these innocent kids. We're not mad at the kids for coming into this country. We're mad at Kamala Harris for letting the Mexican drug cartels do drug trafficking and sex trafficking in the United States of America. But it's something that Kamala and her friends and Tim Walz always say. They talk about being compassionate. They talk about compassion for illegal immigrants. And look, I've got nothing against people who want to come into this country. My message is simple: come through the proper channels. But what about compassion for America's citizens? The American leadership ought to care about our people. The American president ought to put the interests of American citizens first. And if you want to have compassion for anybody, Kamala Harris, let's start with compassion for people who lost their jobs because of your policies. If you want to have compassion, let's start with compassion for people who can't afford their mortgage or their car payments because of your policies. If you want to talk about compassion, let's talk about the 100,000 Americans who are dying of fentanyl overdoses because of your policies. Compassion for the American president ought to start with the American people, and that's exactly where Donald Trump and I put our compassion. It's with our citizens and the people who deserve to be here. I want to say just a couple other things, and I know we got some press back here. I'll take a few questions because whether they're friendly or hostile, don't you believe a person running for vice president ought to talk to the American people? Common sense.